Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 130. We have an episode today with the three hosts of the podcast discussing the previous 3 weeks where we've had guests, and obviously just also thoughts that are on our mind at the moment, what we're doing, what we've been up to, and what we're looking forward to. And I can say that all three of us this week are at home, not together, but we are all at home with high quality Wi-Fi and audio and visual for those of you on YouTube. Obviously, last week I was away in France with some Wi-Fi issues. Paul recently has been at his new gym with some connectivity issues, but we're all at home today, so it should be a seamless presentation. Maybe I'm jinxing it, but hopefully not. We'll see how we're getting on. So first of all, Mr. Peter Lantz in Bath. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. I was just watching you talk yourself into a corner there. It was quite interesting because you're like, oh, where's this going? I'll have to stop now. I like the way you got in that you were in France skiing last week as well. I mean, like, we all know that, right? You don't need to keep telling us.
Well, I should be back skiing in about 3 weeks as well. So
oh, well, that's lovely, isn't it? Look at you. I'm good though, because the weather at the minute is absolutely lush. It's freezing cold in the morning, but then it's like, 6, 7 or 8 degrees in the afternoon. And yesterday, so on a Wednesday, I take the boy for a long walk, and yesterday we did 16.5 miles. We were out for 6 hours because I just got up earlier and got everything done that I needed to get done because I saw the weather forecast. So we went out at 11:10. And got back at 5:10. It was brilliant. It was so nice. And he's sleeping now. He's knackered. So I've worn out a spaniel. So that's quite good. I might have to get a husky next. See if I can wear that out.
Didn't someone comment on one of the podcasts recently about your use of the word lush, saying that it was like a southern phrase and you've been down?
Oh, that was Chris Denning, yeah.
Too long. Yeah.
That was friend of the show, Chris Denning, right? I said something was lush, and he said, oh, like, you've been living down there too long. And that was when Ben Morris, friend of the show, said, you'll be saying Gert lush soon. But I've been saying lush since the 80s. Like, we used to say it in Newcastle all the time. So it's not just a Southwestern thing, I'll have you. In fact, you probably nicked it off us, because I think the English language started up around my neck of the woods anyway, didn't it? So, anyone who doesn't talk like me is talking weirdly, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Mr. Paul Bassett, how are you doing?
I'm glad my internet is not out.
Norman Collier. Norman Collier. Do you remember Norman Collier? The comedian. He used to do the thing with the window.
Yeah.
The knackered microphone. That Paul's just done the perfect impression of Norman Collier. Well done.
That was quite authentic, actually. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
What was that, Paul? Sorry, you're breaking up.
I know. I am breaking up mentally. Physically, I'm okay at the moment. Mentally, I'm okay as well. So yeah, I've installed a nice cushion on the new gym, so I can smash my head against the wall without any kind of physical issues. It's quite useful. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Nice. Does it have the Hounds of Health logo emblazoned on it?
Yeah. It does, covered in kind of a film of blood. But anyway, yeah. But no, it's all good. Yeah, back training again properly. Taking it seriously again. Now I've got some space and I don't feel knackered all the time. So all good.
Excellent. So you're a bit more settled than you have been for the last month, I suppose, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah,
much more. I mean, like, all the equipment's in there. I've still got some stuff to turn up, but it's all the building stuff's done. We're going to do our opening party in March, and response to the gym's been great. So it's been a lot of people inquiring, and it's fantastic. So onwards and upwards.
Excellent. I'll have to make an effort to come over and see you at some stage and have a
be,
visit.
yeah.
Have a day out in London. And
Sights of Wandsworth.
the size of Wandsworth. Yeah. Excellent.
Well, I am right next to the Thames, which is quite nice. I'm literally like, 30, 40, no, about 100 meters to the Thames.
Okay.
Quite nice.
Lovely. You can jump in and have a swim in the summer. No.
I think your dead body is floating down the stream.
Okay, so last 3 weeks, guys, we've had 3 great guests recently. We had last week we had Gary Clark, who's running Disabled Strongman, Britain's Disabled Strongman, and really good conversation with him. The week before we had James Brees talking to us about Cricket Matters and hybrid training certification that he's got coming up. And then the week before that we had Steve Bush, who was talking about his personal journey and transformation and gastric surgery and the way he's made that work for him and why so many people don't. So yeah, I mean, I've had some really good feedback on certainly the as we're recording this, the Steve Bush podcast has come out. The other 2 haven't, but I've had some really good feedback on that. And I was just saying before we started to record, I think that people really resonate with those true life stories, those real life stories of a person telling their story from their perspective, their journey, not anyone who comes on with any particular agenda, I suppose, or nothing to promote other than just to share their experience. But that was really, really good. How have you guys found the last few episodes? I always listen back actually now every week when they come out. I listen to the episode every week just to kind of refresh my memory, because I often pick up a lot of stuff that I didn't get during the recording. Do you guys find that as well?
Yeah. I mean, the Steve one, I've been using that. I've been talking to the guys about that because I don't know who out of my guys never talk about this podcast. I don't even know if they listen to it, to be honest. Because they just get to hear things that I say anyway. And I don't necessarily encourage them to. It's up to them whether they want to or not. But
missing out on the pearls of wisdom for me and James.
Nah,
they do know you do. They do know you do a podcast, though, Pete, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do. But everyone fast forwards through the bits with you two anyway, don't they? At least I do anyway.
You just do an edited version of just you back to back.
Yeah. I've got loads of. I've got all them recorded, by the way. I'm going to put up the best of the Health Authority. No, I'm not. By the way, I'm not that ridiculous. But yeah, I've like, especially the picture. I've just been showing them the picture of before and after with Steve, and it's amazing. And I'm like, it's just a different bloke. But the whole thread of that being that he changed his lifestyle. He just overhauled it. And I was talking to a guy about it. What are we on Thursday today? Tuesday night. One of the guys who comes along, and he's a program manager for Lloyds Bank or Lloyds Banking Group. And he was talking about how he's got to keep, like, a load of people in kind of a doing things with each other, but like without, like, this person over here doing this and this person over here doing something completely different. Everyone needs to know what they're doing to bring the greater good together, and have all got the skills and all that sort of stuff. And it was kind of like what Steve said of, he's really good at his job, and he applied the principles of his job to weight loss, to fitness, to what, like, anything, all principles. If a principle fits across like many facets, doesn't it? So this guy, one of my guys who I was talking to the other night, was like, we were talking about that because he wants to lose some weight. And it's funny because he's 60 and he's very fit. He's now getting stronger. But he keeps saying that, he goes, I can feel it underneath. And he's not fat at all. He's kind of probably built a little bit like me, to be honest. He's quite lean, but he just keeps saying, I've got this tiny little flabby belly that I want to get rid of. And I'm like, why though? What'll happen if you do? Because you're going to have to live this. Well, you're not going to have to, but you'll have to be really mindful of, like, keeping that how it is. And will it actually improve your life, or do you just want to get fitter and stronger and live longer? Yeah. So, but that all came out of the conversation from the Steve Bush episode. It's like, Steve's happy with how he looks now, but that's based on how he looked before. So is this guy just wanting this because he's always looked like that? And he's like, right, well, I've got this little bit of a belly that I want to get rid of, which you can't even notice it. But he obviously does. So it's whether it's, because you can be at that point where Steve was when he was 30 stone and he still thought everything was okay. I always find that really fascinating how someone, because, with me at the moment, I couldn't even fathom allowing myself to get to 30 stone. And in the past, I wouldn't have even done that as well. Even when I was, I put on a bit of weight and got a bit flabby and all that sort of stuff, but never ridiculous amounts. So it's kind of like and I don't know how to put it. It's not what type of person, but what has to happen, what happens neurologically to allow someone to get to that stage before they decide that's when they need to do it. They need to do something about it. And Steve was actually at that stage for years, wasn't he? Before he did something about it. So it's like, that's what I always find fascinating. And you always ask that question, James, of like, what was the driver? What made it happen? What finally made it happen after 30 years of being like that, But it's on different levels with everybody. Like I say, so this guy is, he wants to lose a little bit of flab that, he could do it very quickly, quite easily. And I've said to him, it's quality of food and just track your calories and and you already eat good quality food. You can see that. So it's like, well, just track your calories and it'll disappear, but can you be bothered to do that? And he's like, well, I don't know if I want to do that though. And I'm like, well,
it's basically it's basically being more restrictive than he is now, isn't it? In one way or another, whether that be continuing to eat the type of food he's eating, but just eat less of it, is probably
that's what I said. I said, look at the portion sizes of stuff you're having and just reduce them slightly. Simple as that. If you're eating good quality food, it's that.
Most people prioritize things that they deem important. I mean, thing is you could probably get away with not being super lean, and you don't have to be super focused on your diet, and you can live a really good life. That's particularly in the modern world. Most people, I don't know, ask the question, do you want the level of function that your body can give you? Because we've got it. We don't it's not like we've got a super high function. There's obviously individuals out there that are really, really high achievers in terms of physicality, but we've got enough now that we wouldn't want to lose it. But most people have got a lot of other things that they focus on,
Yep.
And it's a lot of work to get that extra 10%, that extra 20%, isn't it? The first 50% comes really easy. You can drop 5 kilos really easy. You can drop 20 kilos really easy. It's just getting to that next level, which takes a bit more work. I'm all right at kettlebells, but to go to the next level takes an inordinate amount of effort and focus. Most people, it's maybe not a bad thing. They've got other things to do, and they can probably deal. And it's human nature to put things off and think, well, I'll deal with it when it happens. Or
the funny thing with that, and this doesn't go with weight loss, but I was talking to this same guy about because he's getting better at push-ups, and I've been having him doing push-ups and then stabilizing. He's doing it on parallettes and then stabilizing him on one arm, one leg, like a one arm, one-legged plank, and then doing another push-up with both arms and both legs, and then stabilizing. And then, he found that tough. And then now I've got him doing it with one leg raised, and then do the other leg raised and all that. And then I started talking to him about, once you get really good at that, we might even get towards doing a one-armed assisted push-up and all that. And he's like, but do I need to be able to do that? And I was like, you don't need to be able to do it, but you'll get to being able to do a certain amount of push-ups, 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever. And I'm like, so do you just stop there? Because as soon as you stop, everything starts to go backwards, doesn't it? This is the thing. And you can kind of maintain that, but there's no downside to then going to one arm. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And I used to think in the thing like, well, that would be enough. And I'm like, well, now why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, fair enough if you're going to try and get to like triple bodyweight deadlift or something like that. James Brees mentioned this, didn't he? And that's going to slow you down and all that. And there's a connotation to that. But body
What
weight.
about your guitar though? You're playing bass. I mean,
I'm shit at that.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got. I didn't want to say that, but no, I never heard you. But I mean, you get to a certain level and you can put a bit more effort in and get even better. You could, or why not learn slap? You could learn slap bass.
I haven't played that for ages, and I've got no goals with it or anything like that because it's not what I want to do.
That's what the guy's probably like.
Yeah, but he's training with me. Do you know what I mean? So he's actually there turning up, doing it. And it's like, so therefore, if you're going to do it properly. So with the bass, I don't do it properly. So I'm just not doing it.
The thing is, when I finish training, I think about it. When I'm walking down the street, I'm thinking about it randomly. It's always present. And I think a lot of clients, they train with me and then the door opens and they leave the gym and it's like everything's wiped again. It's not to say that it won't kick back in again. It's just filed into that folder and they don't click the folder again until they open the door next time. Whereas me, it's ever present,
Yep.
And therefore I do think about progressions. I do think about where I'm going with it. But for them, I think it's just like, bang, I'm in, I'm doing this. Okay, gone, focus on something else. And they know that they need to do it. They know they need to be healthy, but they're like, and that's it, And its benefit is to allow them to not suffer the consequences of not doing it, rather than to exceed in the other end.
That's where you get there. I mean, I have different conversations with different guys who are trained, obviously, but we train in a group as well. So there's lots of other conversations going around. But what I try to do is try to get them to think about it while they're not there as well. So I'd be like, oh, while you're at home, you can do, learning to stand on one leg or whatever. I'm like, you can do that while you're brushing your teeth. You can do it while you're standing in a supermarket queue. You can do it and just start to get like those little, I don't know, like hacks or whatever you want to call them, that people can do just to test where they're at and just to see it. And then they can come back and go, actually, I've got better at this. And I'm like, that's because you've been working on it. You know what I mean? So trying to influence them to think about it outside, because I get people coming back like, oh, I read an article about in the Guardian or whatever about how standing on one leg is better for all cause mortality. And I was like, I told you that last week. And they're like, yeah, I know you told me, but that backs it up, doesn't it? And I was like, well, yes, it does. So if they get the same information from a source that, I mean, obviously they think I'm reputable, otherwise they wouldn't be with me, but then another source that backs it up, it's like all of a sudden it's a reinforcement and gets them to think about it more. So whereas he might have not even noticed the article, in the thing. So it's kind of like, that's why this podcast, I like doing it, because it gets it into people's ears every week and it keeps the message there. And the message can change slightly, but the underlying principle behind it is the same all the time, unless something's proven wrong or whatever, or we do change our minds or whatever based on some new information. But at the time of recording, when we're talking about it, everything we talk about and everything we say, we think is sort of like the best information that we can give to people at the time.
Maybe we need to do a section called Change Our Minds.
Yeah.
Something where we're challenged in our, maybe listeners could send something in on the group or something, and to challenge our preconceptions, to, put us on the spot. That might be quite interesting.
There was something that came out I think it was last week, it might have been the week before, that's kind of that challenged a lot of people, which I saw loads of talk about from people within the health and fitness industry and stuff like that. You probably saw it was an American news show where they had a doctor on who was one of the main doctors, I think, involved in probably like the Biden administration, like setting policy and that sort of thing, who said that obesity was a disease, and that if you were a child born to parents who, and they used the term, who had obesity, you were 50 to 85% more likely or have a greater chance to become obese yourself, which most people kind of agree on and can, but there was a difference to this one, because most people can kind of say, well, yeah, that's of course right, and you can see why, but they would think that it would be more to do with this, nature or nurture, and the way that you're actually, the lifestyle and the habits and the food and all the rest of it. But then what she said was that regardless of if you had, and the word was, if you had optimal diet, optimal training, and optimal lifestyle habits like sleep and stress management and everything, you were still, 50 to 85% more likely to be obese than someone who was not born to parents who had obesity. So it really kind of
sounds like a get out clause.
Triggered.
But that's what I'm saying. Ring true to me, but then
what happened about 50 years ago that changed everyone?
No, but you see what I'm saying? This is something that directly does challenge or question your belief system or our belief system, and people very, very quickly had the same reaction as you both had and I had initially, which was, well, that's a load of bollocks. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a load of rubbish. It can't be. It's blah, blah, blah. We know this. And I went, but it did promote and provoke some really good discussion.
Well, it's a convenient get out clause for any kind of institution that meant that it wasn't their fault. That was quite convenient. It wasn't anything to do with legislation, political kind of machinations and decisions around the labor market, decisions around food production, decisions around nutrition advice many years ago. It's a good get out clause, isn't it? To say that it's actually something in the air or something,
Also, have they, I know, it depends, like studies all depend on who's funded it and who's, what they're looking for, because you can find out, you can do a study on stuff and find what you're looking for. Or you can just do a study hoping to look for something and see what comes out of that study, right? But have they done anything on it? Just saying like, oh, you're 50 to 85% more likely, right? Which I can fully believe, because if you grow up with obese parents, you're going to learn from them what to eat and how to eat and all that sort of stuff, and how to exercise. And the likelihood is you're not going to be exercising very much and stuff like that. I would say, I don't know, but that's what's in my head. But then if they ate whole foods, did some exercise and all that, they're still over 50% likely to be obese. Have they tested that? That's the thing.
It must have come from somewhere. But this was what was quite interesting, because like you said, it's if you get something, if you get, and most people that responded, and they obviously, the people that I see mainly respond are within the kind of realm that we are in. Do you know what I mean? So, but immediately you get the pushback, which is what we've had, just now, which is, and the pushback from everyone, lots of people who, like you say, you're fully on board with the 50 to 85%. But we would attribute that more to, lifestyle and all the rest of it, rather than, like a genetic but the reason I was going to say this genetic predisposition, and one of the phrases that I've used a lot on the podcast that I like, which I can't remember who heard it from originally, but it was that, genetics load the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger, so because there's not, when we talked about, like, say Steve Bush, who was on, and, a number of members that I've had over the years at Unique Results who have got to 30 plus stone, or we said about 420 pounds in weight, there has to be some kind of genetic predisposition to putting on weight, because I know that I for example, I would imagine the three of us, I would really, I don't know if it would physically be possible for me to get to 30 stone.
Shall we have a go?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, something could be
Should we have a
interesting.
race?
No, I genuinely believe that. I genuinely mean that, because I used to really eat and eat and eat and eat and try and get bigger and heavier and stronger and lift and eat and eat. And I got to like 100 kilos, which is kind of 220 pounds. And yeah, I just don't know if physically, I mean, a genuine kind of question I'm asking myself.
Like you can get physically very talented individuals in terms of like, people would just go in and they can just smash something out. They're fast twitch, they're powerful, they're explosive, they good move. Some people I think can carry weight easier, and therefore it became less of a, maybe for some people it's just that their body can deal with being overweight far easier and makes the adaptations that allows them to continually gain weight in a linear fashion. I mean, I ended up at the age of 28 in hospital because I was 116, 17 kilos, and I ended up in hospital because of it. I was nowhere near getting to 30 stone, and my body was telling me quite quickly that I couldn't do it. And so, I mean, maybe genetic, I can't handle that much weight. Well, I can't get fat, because I could.
There is, I can't remember his name. He was on another podcast that I listened to, and it was a research guy from Cambridge. Can't remember his name. But anyway, he was saying there's like, obviously different ethnicities have different reactions to weight gain because of different genetics. So it's definitely a thing. I think he was saying kind of, Asians have more predisposition to type 2 diabetes, I think he said.
Yeah.
So you can put on a lot of weight. We as Europeans can possibly put on a lot more weight than an Asian would be able to without getting type 2 diabetes, because we're not as susceptible to it for some genetic reason. So there's those things to take into consideration as well. And then like if you're talking about in the States, there's obviously, there's a huge swathe of different ethnicities around in the States and everything like that. So it's like, but the problem I see sometimes in things like this is someone sees those sorts of stats and goes, that's me. And therefore, and we spoke about this with Dave Whitley as well, didn't we? And I think about this a lot now as well, because and we spoke about it with Brooks Kubik as well, when he got diagnosed he had asthma as a kid. And it was like, right, you've got asthma, therefore you are your diagnosis. You shouldn't do any exercise. You're going to have to collect stamps and all that. And it's like, you're not your diagnosis. You have asthma. There's something you can do about it. And he did. Dave Whitley was saying his whole family were like susceptible to type 2 diabetes, but they also like to eat a lot of food. And that was, and he was thinking, is it genetic and all that? And maybe it is. Maybe it is, but there's still this, you can still give yourself a sporting chance of, eating well and training and all that sort of stuff. So that's when I see like stats like that come out, and then someone goes, yeah, that's me, and that's what's going to hold me back, without even knowing if it is or not, without getting tested for it, without anything, without being like genetically tested or however you do it. And then just saying, all right, so there's not even any point in me exercising. I can look at a carb and it makes me fat and all of that. And I hear that a lot. And it's like, if you're coming from that mindset, it's, you're basically saying it's not going to work for me.
I know, I've had conversations.
This will work for me. Let's go at it, and then doing it and seeing what happens.
I've had a conversation with someone recently, and they're saying, I keep gaining weight. I keep gaining weight, and I said, well, and then they said, look, I just don't think genetically I can lose weight like other people. Diets don't work for me. And so I've created I've gone down the calorie route just to teach them about food volume. But by giving it to them, they've said, I can't do this, I can't do that. I'm only going to do it Monday to Thursday. And I'm not going to do the breakfast because I've got something that works, even though evidently from the conversations it's not. And so before you know it, they're just changing the whole thing. And it is often when you go into these things and you do your forensics, you suddenly realize that there's actions that are being taken, which make it very, very obvious which direction they're going to end up in, and it's just a question of, I think we can deceive us, not deceive, deception is maybe a bad word, but we can hide ourselves from things which are the most pertinent questions we have to ask ourselves. We can avoid them and say, that's easy, that someone's telling me that's why. But actually what we need to do is go in and actually do that self-assessment and be honest about the actions that we're taking, which is not easy, because I mean, God forbid, all of us have made this, go have an operating handbook that at times works and at other times really does not,
I had a funny conversation last Saturday. Yeah, and it was with a friend. She's 61, I think. She used to live next door to me, and she's moved, but like we've remained friends, me and her and Sean. And I got a bit annoyed with her on Saturday night, a bit of a confessional time here, because I got annoyed with her. But we'd had a couple of beers in the pub, and then we were drinking some wine and stuff like that. And we're just like, she came back here for dinner and what have you. And we were just talking about, because she wants to lose some weight. She's not like hugely overweight or anything, but she wants to lose some weight. She used to live in Cornwall, and she did lots of rowing and all that sort of stuff. But now that she's in Bath, she doesn't do all that. And I'm like, you can still do stuff though. There's, I go walking everywhere and all that. Oh, but I haven't got time. But you had time in Cornwall. Yeah, but that was because it was with other people who were rowing. It's like, yeah, but you could still do it here. All of that stuff. And then we got on to just chatting about, and this is one of the things, right, which we talk about it on this podcast. I talk about it with my guys all the time. In social situations, and I know this, and it's like asking a doctor, when they're at a party or something like that, and you go, I've got this rash here, they'll be like, no, I'm not talking about that because I'm not on duty. And I, because it was a friend, we got into the conversation. Like I said, I'd let my mind go that way. But it was the whole thing of, I can't do that in Bath. And it's like, you can. And then the next thing was like, yeah, but, and I was like using myself as an example. I used to be overweight and now I do this. And if I start to put weight on, I'll just eat a bit less and all of that. Yeah, but wait till you get to 60. And I'm like, for God's sake.
There's a saying, isn't there, that I use with, some people have a problem for every solution,
yes.
They ask for some advice, and you say something, and straight away there's a rebuttal that comes back as to why that won't work for them. And you give them something else. And I know what you mean.
There was the exercise thing, and I was like, yes, you can. There's hills around. Honestly, Bath is in a bowl. Every way out is up a hill. Easy. There was that thing of what did I say, of age, and I was like, no, and I said, and I'd love to be able to say by the time I'm your age, we'll talk about it, but I can't because we're not there. I'd have to wait like 14 or 15 years, but I'm pretty sure I'll still be in shape in 14 or 15 years. And then the last one was like, and I was like, well, just like, she eats well, and I was like, eat whole foods and all this sort of stuff, and then so just be careful with what you eat and everything. She was just like, but that's really boring, and I'm just like, and I got really angry.
Feels like a conversation that maybe you could have ended early.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, and I know that I reflected on it the next day, and I sent her a message saying, "Look, I apologize for last night because I got a bit heated." And she said, "Don't worry, that's why we love you because of your passion and all that." But I was like, I felt like really bad because I lost my rag, and I've been working on that for years, to kind of like the mindset side of it and all that, and remain calm.
You can't help people who don't want to be helped.
I know, but it's because there's like a closeness because she's a friend as well. You know what I mean? If it was just a random person, it's like, well, that's fine. Well, but it's because I want to say I do well, and I want to say all that, but like, it's like, you're just getting in your own way. And
it's an interesting question, particularly when it comes to health, which, health or things that are possibly self-destructive that people do, and a lot of people's decisions around health can be self-destructive. Do we tell them the truth? Do we sugarcoat things? Do we be diplomatic? Are we kind? Or do we?
I love the way you've put that in. Do we sugarcoat it? That's interesting. That
exactly. But the thing is, sometimes you sit there and you hear the barriers that go down, and you're sitting there going, for God's sake, just do And part of you feels like, okay, well, maybe I just need to call them out on this. But then you bite your tongue and you go, well, actually, that's probably not the route to do it. I mean,
I think it depends. And I think if someone's paying for your help, your advice, your coaching, I probably really, it's different if someone's a dinner party guest. But,
well, no,
is it like Black Books?
No, because she was asking. She asked. This is the thing.
I know.
It's not
a
like I
first
sat
mistake.
there and went, right, here's what you need to do. Shut up, and I'm going to tell you what to do. She kept asking me questions, and I kept answering. And then she kept telling me why it didn't apply to her. So
I had this.
That's what the frustrating thing was.
Yeah, no, I don't like talk. And I think it just depends who's in front of you and how well you know them and what they're asking. And because I like you, I was last week when I was away with this group at dinner. I don't want to be. I don't want to be, while I'm eating dinner, I don't want to be talking about the way I eat and food and calories and weight loss and track, whatever, you know. I'm
like Tom Cruise, you have to face the wall so no one can see you eat.
No, but I'm kind of on holiday with friends and with friends from the gym and stuff. But at one point, a lady kind of started sort of asking me about, so what do you do then? Because I wasn't, eating breakfast while we were there. I was just having my black coffee like I normally have in the morning, you know, and it's like, well, how many calories do you have a day then? You must need a lot of calories and I need to eat all the time and blah, 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 blah. And if someone starts doing that to me, I just kind of, I'm not rude, but I just am very sort of unresponsive and just give like a minimal answer and try and move on, because I really don't want to get involved in those kind of conversations, you know, when I'm not working or when it's, some people want small talk, you know, and they kind of want small talk and I think you're going to be interested in talking about it because it's what you do. But do you know what I mean? I try and avoid that as much as possible because
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose I'm interested in having a conversation with someone genuinely interested in the process of change. And you could be quite aware of that quite quickly. If it's someone just telling me they've got an achy ankle, and what's the best exercise, I know they probably weren't going to do it. But if it, you know, if the character of the conversation is kind of going in the right direction, then I can get quite geeky about that stuff.
I find it interesting though, because what you just said there, Paul, I can't remember what you said before James started talking about the being away on holiday again.
I didn't actually say that. I said I was sitting at a table with people
while I was away skiing. What was it? He said? But anyway, there can be someone asking questions. Okay, so this lady, like I say, she's not massively overweight or anything. So she's got it in her head that she wants to lose weight. And then she's going to talk to me about it. Same with the guy who I train as well. Like they then talk to me about it, start asking about it. And I'm like, and I can give them the answers, but then they go, well, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, well, do you need to then? Because actually you look fine the way you are. And I said that to her as well. You know, I was like, yeah, but you're not, you know, you're not ludicrously overweight or anything like that. You just want to, it's playing on your mind that you want to either look better or feel better or whatever it is. But you're also not, it's playing on your mind because you're not prepared to do the things that will get you there. So how healthy is that for your mindset to have that conflict going on in your head? And that's that's the real problem, isn't it? But
well, you've got to push them on these.
But
things.
I would never even talk to anybody about that unless we're on I talk to my guys on calls about it and that, but that's what they want. But I would never even talk about that because then that's, you know, that takes it off on a whole new level.
Well, I said it to a client recently, to a person. I said, to a guy who came in, I said, look, you look like, he said, I want to get in great shape, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, look, you look like the average 35-year-old guy. You're not particularly overweight, you know, why change? Because, you know, change is going to take you into a subset of people that you know, is not the majority, essentially. And it might not be worth it, you know, because you could probably be quite happy as you are. So why work with me? You know, he did end up.
He went, all right, cheers, see you later.
Yeah, no, he did. Yeah. But then at least I know that if he says he's thought about it, then at least he's made a decision that he's thought about, rather than just like,
Yeah.
I need to do this, So then it allows me to have a harder conversation with him later down the road.
Yeah.
If I need
Here's-
to, because
Here's a funny thing though. So I got annoyed with this lady, with my friend.
old man
I'm still working on
shouts
that. But two days before, I was talking to my guys who have like calls every a couple of times a week in the evening, sort of like talking about mindset stuff. And one of my guys wants to lose weight. He won't mind me talking about this on the podcast because I've just told you they all don't listen to it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, he wants to lose a bit of weight, and he lost nearly a stone before Christmas, and then he's kind of wavered a bit since Christmas, and he was like, oh, because Christmas, and I was like, it's the end of January, so you're still wavering at the end of January, and we talk every week, and and it's kind of keeping it top of mind. But then we got to a point, and this was, I found this amazing. We got to a point. So when you see it online, and we might have said it before and all that, like someone wants to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? Because my clothes will fit. Why is that good? And keep asking why, so you can get to the actual real reason. So I can be around for me kids. So, I'm live longer, so I'm there for them. And then I can be the cool granddad or grandma or whatever, and all of that stuff, right? That wasn't enough for him. Because he'd done all that, and he was like, but he goes, it's obviously clearly not incentive enough because I'm not doing it. And that was very insightful, because it's like, well, yeah, so something subconsciously is telling you that's not enough. So then he said, we just started chatting about it. So he wanted to lose weight so he could live longer and be there for his son and his family and all that. But then when he thought about losing weight to live longer, it then made him thought of his own mortality. And he doesn't like thinking about that. So therefore he'd shut it down and just go back to what he was doing. So it was actually his feelings about his own mortality is why he can't lose weight, which is the very thing he wants to lose so he can live for longer. You know what I mean? So it's a weird
it's
kind
the
of
ostrich
spiral.
It's the ostrich issue, isn't it? You bury your head in the sand and hope it will go away,
Yeah.
So many people do that. It's misdirect. They try and spend time on other things to give them the false sense of momentum. Oh, I'm doing things, but they're actually not actually doing the thing that they need to do.
But the whole thing of why there, I thought was fascinating, because it's like, how would you ever know that unless you're chatting about it and asking people and talking about it? Because some people just don't even bother, and they just think, I can't lose weight because I can't, because it doesn't matter what I eat, how much exercise I do, I can't lose weight. And it's like, no, you're actually self-sabotaging without even realizing it, because your subconscious is telling you you're scared of your own mortality. And I found that amazing. And I put up a quote. No, it wasn't a quote, actually. It was from a passage from the Tao Te Ching. It might have been. And then as I was writing, I was like, formulating my own thought on it and making notes and stuff like that. And this thing just popped out based on what was said in the passage. And it was about difficulty leads to avoidance. So something's going to be difficult, rather than taking the passage in the Tao Te Ching was always about make the big things small, take the first step, and then compound that, and you get to overcome difficult things by doing small things. But it was like, the very fact that you think something is difficult is going to make it so therefore you avoid it. So difficulty leads to avoidance, but then avoidance leads to difficulty because you're not doing the thing anyway. So it becomes even more difficult further down the line as you get older or whatever. And I love things like that, because it's just two sentences that kind of are the opposite. But you just take two words and rearrange them. So difficulty leads to avoidance, avoidance leads to difficulty. And then you just keep looping them around, because that's where people end up in a lifestyle of just this loop of I can't do that because it's too difficult, so I'm going to avoid it. And then the very thing that you've avoided is like, right, I'm going to go at it now. Oh, I can't, it's too difficult, so I'm going to avoid it. And it just keeps going and going and going. And as soon as you can break that loop, whatever's creating it, that's where the power is. That's where the magic happens.
I mean, I think introspection, and I think all those kind of the ability to examine your own life is a weird quirk of industrialization and farming. It's the only time in our history in which we've had the time to think deeply about our own thoughts
Mm.
And I think almost we're not designed for it. We're kind of designed for it, but we're not. We're designed to search for meaning, because meaning allowed us to hunt. Meaning allowed us to put ourselves in the mind of the animal, to understand our culture of our tribe. But we really didn't have the time or the environment that we currently have now, which allows us to then become almost a feedback loop. And I think there is something to say. It's important to be aware of your own inner feelings and have clarity there, particularly in the modern world, which does give us the time to examine that. But at the same time, by action, by doing, by taking control, and even if you're not working completely in the right direction, but you're making strides forwards in some capacity, you are probably much more likely to start finding the clarity you want. I think that's it. It's not about ignoring it. It's not about saying, I'm just going to do something blindly and hope that it goes away. But I think it's very easy to spend a lot of time examining ourselves without doing, and they need to happen concurrently. And it's up to each individual which route they take, but I think you have to put one foot in front of the other and do things. And I think that's how we, and particularly as men, I think that's how we do things. We're much better at opening up when we're doing things. We're much better at being, I certainly am. If someone wants to have a conversation with me about my feelings, I'm not going to do it sitting down on a chair in an exam style way, probably having a walk, doing something, training, whatever. That's when I'm going to be sharing more and being, so I think it's a weird quirk of our modern lives that we can spend so much time thinking about this stuff.
I think we actually, I personally know that I overthink things sometimes, and I think we've got to.
Do you?
Yeah.
Or do I?
Yeah. I overthink things sometimes. I think lots of people, and I think because we've got this, like you say, we've got more time, but we've also got, we always talk about the number of inputs that we have now, and the number of, the comparing your life and yourself to others, this kind of, I think it was Mark Lewis when he was on, who said that, when we were at school, for example, you saw other people around you at school, that's who you saw,
that was your peer group, that was your social media.
Yeah, and occasionally you watch the TV and you saw like Blue Peter or bloody News Round or whatever it was on TV, but you were very actually sheltered from the world, and in terms of your inputs daily. And you play out in your local community on your bike, and you go and play football in the park and all the rest of it. And now I think you like he said with his children, that now you're bombarded by images of what many people see as, perfection, or, a more desirable life, or a more desirable body, or a more desirable, career, or a more desirable financial situation all the time, constantly. And I think it does stop us being in the moment a lot, because you're constantly comparing yourself to what others have and what others do, and all the rest of it. It's really, we were just, when we were talking a minute ago, and you were saying, and you were both discussing kind of how people can put barriers up to doing things, like we said, some people have like a problem for every solution. And then it made me think in that moment when we were talking to Gary last week, who, disabled strongman, who, almost had which is the other way around, like almost like Pete, what Pete said, he had a solution for every problem. It's like, well, I've got this disability, but I still want to be able to do this. How do I do it? And you come up with a way around it, rather than putting a roadblock in front of yourself. It's kind of, how do I work around my limitations, rather than using those limitations or differences as an excuse not to try.
It's using our natural ability to problem solve in the right way, rather than to go too deep inside and just go in this circular fashion of self-examination constantly. It's actually saying, okay, so how do I better myself? How do I solve this thing? I don't know. I mean,
I suppose it's procrastination, isn't it? This overthinking without action, that that overthinking without action. And yeah.
It's the huge thing as well. So I've been learning about this in kind of like neurology and stuff, is you basically believe yourself and you don't believe anybody else. And it doesn't matter what anyone tells you, unless you've, so that's like part of the coaching thing, isn't it? Of getting people to answer their own questions, because the answer is always within, because you have to answer your own questions because you don't believe anyone else anyway. You only believe, your brain only believes yourself. So,
How do you
sorry?
How do you answer believe you me then?
You've put me off now. But no, your brain only believes itself. So even if you give someone the solution to a problem, so like I say, when I like on Saturday when I was doing this thing, and then you get the answers back of like, I can't do that because I can't do that because, and it's like, right. So the thing then is, which you can't do after a few beers and a glass of wine, is like, right, how am I going to get this person to realize that the answers are in them? And how do I get them to answer their own questions? So then when they answer it and go, I can do that because, they then believe it and then they go ahead and do it, which is why on the coaching side, it's really interesting, because whenever you see someone who's got great results, the coach is standing there and they go, I didn't really do very much. They did all the work. We just talked. And it's because it's the coach's job to get someone to realize within themselves what they're capable of, and then they go ahead and do it.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Because
the thing is, it's your ability.
Your brain only believes you.
I mean, your ability as a coach is based on your knowledge and your experience. And so the first thing we want to do as coaches is typically is to provide knowledge. However, really, our job is to ask questions, which is, okay. And I like typically someone will phone me up and say, I'm interested in personal training. I don't tell them my membership straight away. I say, what would you like to achieve? Why are you contacting me? Because until then, I can't provide advice. And so in a way, the more questions I ask, eventually they come to the answer. That answer, I hope, is that, oh, come in and see you and sit down and we have a chat. But it's the same when it comes to diet. It's like I say, they could ask you what supplements, blah, blah, blah. But almost it's like, well, why do you need that? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go with this? Well, I want to do this X, Y, Z. And before you know it, they've probably given the answer and you've just guided them in the right path, and occasionally drop a bit of knowledge saying, well, I would try that then, you know? But that's quite difficult to do, because my urge is to impart knowledge straight away for experience. I'm training myself to ask questions instead.
Yeah. And to listen and just let people talk, give them time and space to kind of, like you say, explore their own thoughts, which is
well,
interesting.
Is a type of action, isn't it? So when you ask someone a question, they have to take action on that question, and therefore they're proactive in the ability to design their own outcome based on answering questions, you know.
Indeed.
Profound, eh?
Yeah, on that bombshell.
Knowledge bombs.
Right. No, that was really good. Yeah, no, it's good. I like these episodes where we kind of can have a bit of a talk and a bit of an explore and delve into things a little bit more deeply. So I've got a guy coming in to see me actually this evening at 5:00 who's contacted us, and Nikki's booked him in to come in and have a chat with me. So I do enjoy meeting new people and talking, and like you say, and especially if you meet without the I suppose without an agenda and without a kind of a need to sign someone up or to sell them something, or you're kind of I don't know if ambivalent is the right word. I'm not attached to the outcome. Do you know what I mean? Of the conversation. So it's
you can help someone, can't you? I mean, if someone sits down with you, there's no question that you can't help them.
I don't know, but someone else might be able to help them more. Someone else might be able to, yeah. It's not. It's just kind of like
having your ability.
Yeah, but it's the same that I wouldn't really. But like you say, I think over the years, I've kind of. You go through periods where you might be a bit desperate and you really want to sign, financially you think, oh, I've got to get, but if you sit down and you really are totally unattached to the outcome of whether they end up doing anything with you or not, I think I think people feel that. They feel that energy, and you give off a different energy and you feel a different thing as well when you're just having a chat. And if at the end of the chat you shake hands and they walk out the door and you never see them again, you're fine with that. it's quite nice. It frees you from all just free. It makes it a more authentic interaction, probably.
You have more of a natural conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Whenever I chat to anybody now about programs or anything like that, I just go into the conversation thinking like I'm just gonna have a chat with someone and make a friend, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, they decide whether they want to come with you or not on whatever journey it is that you're going to go on.
And the time might be right now, or it might not be right now. And
Yeah.
I've had that a lot as well, where you talk to someone and 2 years later they'll come back and say, "Oh, I came to see you 2 years ago."
It's funny
And
that I've had
Yeah.
a message off someone on Facebook Messenger. It's a guy who I met about 3 or 4 months ago. I was walking my dog in the meadows around here, and we ended up getting chatting. And then he asked what I did, because I said like, "Oh, I get times off in the afternoon, so he gets a good walk and all that." And he was like, "Well, what do you do?" So I told him, and he was like, "Oh, I've got a bit of a dodgy shoulder, and I've done jiu-jitsu, and I've done this, and I've done that, and blah 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 blah." So I said, "All right, okay." So I sent him a friend request on Facebook while we were there, and I said, "Oh, just connect, just send us a message or whatever." And I haven't heard anything from him since. And then he messaged me this morning, like 4 months later. "I don't know if you remember who I am. We met in the thing." I was like, "I know exactly who you are, mate," because I made a note of it straight away. I know exactly who you are. But no, because everyone I've had a conversation with that who's shown interest, I'm like, right, when you show up, I make a note of it. I know he's got 2 Saluki dogs. One of them has to wear a muzzle because it's a bit overzealous. That was the dog that came over, how we started the conversation. I know all of that. But it's like, I'm not going to pressure you or anything like that. And then he's now got in touch. I haven't got back to him yet, but I will. And it'll be like, yeah, let's have a chat. I might even go and meet him for a coffee or whatever he's up for. And then we'll go from there. And it's like, and he might sign up, he might not. But it doesn't matter, because you seem like a very nice chap.
Yeah.
So, it's taken that, and that's the same with like pretty much everything you do. Just like, zero expectation, just see what happens.
Yeah. No, excellent. Right. We've been talking for the whole, nearly an hour now, but any final thoughts from either of you before I wrap up?
No.
Silence.
Tumbleweeds.
Silence. That's fine. No, that's just thought I'd check. So I know that in the next few weeks we will have, I don't know the exact dates tied in yet, but we will have Brett Jones coming back on to talk about iron cardio. We will have Ben Causa coming on in the next few weeks. And we will have other guests. I'm not sure our lineup for the next few weeks. We're just finalizing things at the moment, but we will obviously be back next week with episode 131. So thank you for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're listening on a platform that allows you to do so. And if you would like to join the Facebook group, just go into Facebook on group, search Health Oddity, click to join, and one of us will let you in. And we will see you next week for episode 131. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.